started, so I want to go ahead and let you know. All right. So welcome to December Schoolnet webinar. This is on item creation in Schoolnet. I am going to put the slide deck in the chat that I'm going to be working off of today. And I'm going to continue to let people in. There we go. I'm going to wait just a minute or so before we get started. I do not have Catherine Simone with me today, so I am going to be trying to let people in and monitor the chat throughout our session today. I just ask for patience. If you put a question in the chat and I don't see it immediately, I will get to it before the end. Oh, somebody's saying they can't hear me. Okay. Let's see. Hmm. All right. Let's see. Is there anyone else on the call? And I've got two that are saying they can't hear me. Is anyone else saying thinking they can't hear me? All my settings are saying that my AirPods are working. Okay, thank you, David. All right, so, because yeah, I was thinking my microphone and speakers are showing they're working. Okay, so Anna and it's not a webinar unless someone says they can't hear you, right? Or usually it's me that I'm muted, so I was not surprised to check my mic. Okay, let's see. All right, Anna, I see that you came back on the call. Let me know if you can hear me now. Others on the call said they could hear me, and I was able to confirm that my AirPods were working correctly. Um, okay. All right, so I am going to, okay, perfect. Thank you, Anna. All right, so I am going to go ahead and get started now that audio seems to be working. I did put the slide deck in the chat, and let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. I am going to cut my camera just to try and save a little bit of bandwidth over here. All right. There we go. Okay, perfect. All right, so again, welcome to December Schoolnet session on item creation in Schoolnet. This session will be completely focused on creating your own items in the Schoolnet platform. And I will also show you how you can edit items that are already existing in the Schoolnet platform if you just wanted to maybe change the type of item that it was. So I'm going to try to get through all of that in our hour that we have together. I do have a few housekeeping things. First up, my name is Rebecca Stokes. I am the product manager for Schoolnet for DPI. My email address is located right here on the screen. Please feel free to send me an email anytime you have a question about anything Schoolnet related, or if you're having an issue with an assessment or just a general question about the platform. I am here to assist however I can. All right. Just a few questions that usually come up. Our live webinars, you can get CEU credit. Since it is a 1 hour session, it is worth zero point 0.1 CEUs. And so that is equivalent to 1 hour of credit. So just remember that you have to have 10 hours of credit to equal 1 CEU. As far as the type of credit you will receive, that is completely up to your school, if you are at a charter school, or up to your district. So you will want to make sure that you submit your CEU certificate, and follow your district or school's approval process. You will want to provide written justification for the type of credit that you're requesting, but just keep in mind that it is your district or school's decision as to what type of credit that is. So how will you receive the credit? You must be logged into the live webinar, which obviously you all are. And after the session is over, at the very end, there is feedback. And also our webinar service tracks a time log of how long you are in the session. So as long as you are participating in the session for the hour and you complete that feedback, then I will be able to send you a certificate of not precipitation, I'm sorry, staring at the snow outside my window, a certificate of participation. And I'll email you that along with the recording and the slide deck for you to be able to reference later. Unfortunately, if you are watching this at a later time on our YouTube channel, you cannot receive credit for watching the recording of the webinar, only if you are logged into the live webinar with me. Okay. All right, if you have questions, please feel free to use the chat feature in Teams. It is located at the top and looks like a little speech bubble. I am doing this session solo today. I normally have Catherine Simone with me, so I will be trying to not only monitor the chat, but also present at the same time. So just be patient with me. I'll try to do the chat kind of after each segment that we get to, but I promise that I will get to all of your questions. All right, so our agenda looks a little small today, but I promise that it is packed full of information. So our agenda today is we're going to talk about the item types that are available in Schoolnet. We'll talk about how you can create them. I'm going to show you how to create kind of the most commonly used items, but I also have resources for all of the other item types on creating those. And then I'm going to show you how you can also edit items. And then we have our feedback and then some additional resources for you. Okay, so first up is the types of questions in Schoolnet. Okay, so everything on this screen is a printable item type, meaning if you need a paper copy of the assessment, these are the types of items that you will be able to print out. Whereas the other item types that I'm going to show you in just a minute are online only, meaning they cannot be printed. Okay. So if you already know that you have any students that require a paper copy, you want to make sure that you are in building a test that includes these types, okay? So we have multiple choice, true, false, gridded, open response, inline response, matching, and checklist. I do have a description of these. I didn't have one for true false because it is just simply true and false. But I do have images of all of these as well, just so you can kind of see what the student view looks like. And then we also have our online only items. So these are going to be more of our like technology enhanced type items. So we have hotspot, drag and drop, gap match, drawing, number line, and scatter plot. And again, I have what exactly that means. So because hotspot, that's pretty confusing, but it lets you know in the description that that is where students are dragging and they drop a target icon onto a specific location. We do have a screenshot of all of these as well, to kind of give you an idea of what they would look like. And then we have two additional ones that are online only, and that is a function graph and then a task, which is like a multi-part item. So if you are science content, I know that the task item type is very common amongst science teachers teachers because of students having those type of questions at the end of the year. So I'll be happy to show you how to create one of those item types as well. Okay. All right. So before I move on, I'm going to check to see if I have anything in the chat. Okay. And I'm sorry that this is how I'm going to have to check the chats today, but it doesn't look like I have anything. I am going to put the slide deck one more time since we had some newer people coming in. Okay. All right. So first section is creating items in Schoolnet. And first up, we have the very common multiple choice. Now, Schoolnet has a lot of multiple choice items in the platform, but sometimes you might have your own that you want to create. So that is what I'm going to show you. I am going to do this through the training site so that I don't accidentally put these questions in there. Hoping, yeah, I'll say I'm hoping the weather does not hinder my internet connection. And I am going to zoom in. Perfect. Okay. And everything that I'm going to be showing you today is detailed in that slide deck with screenshots and images and descriptions. So just know that if you are following along in the video, in the slide deck as well, it's step-by-step kind of directions. Okay. So anytime that you want to create your own item in Schoolnet, you're always going to start at the same place. It's over in the Assessments tab. And we are going to go to the second section, the one that says Items, Rubrics, and Passages, and we're going to go to Create. So this is where you can see all of those item types that I showed you on those first few slides. And we're going to go to multiple choice. Okay. So any type of item that you are creating, you're going to have to first have these first three steps filled out. So you're always going to need to choose your subject. So I'm going to go with, I'll say math on this one, say fifth grade, and then you have to choose your standards. Now, when you are aligning the standards, just keep in mind that in Schoolnet, the standards will drill down as detailed as the standard goes. So you don't just have to click geometry as a whole. You can click the drop down arrows and notice that I have like a part 1 and a part 2. Okay, so I could just say that it is this part of the standard, or I could be building this for the entire parent standard here. I'll say that one. Okay. All right, so we're at multiple choice. Here is where my question goes. I know that I picked a geometry standard, but I don't remember exactly which one I chose. So this is where I'm going to start putting my question. So we are not going to be looking at this question for actual quality content. We're going to keep that in mind. I am just going to start typing some things. But when you are creating this item, obviously you are the master of your content area. And so you would clearly know what to type in here as a question. So please, no judgment on the complete randomness I'm going to be entering in here as a question. So let me admit someone in real quick. There we go. All right. So again, I know that I put something with geometry, but I don't exactly remember. So I'm just going to say, what is a polygon? Oh, might want to spell that right. Clearly not the best question, okay? All right, but I do want to point out a few things, okay? So you do have a full rich content editor down here with lots of options. So you can, of course, do your usual features of like, if you wanted to change the font or the font size, we can make it bold or italicized, underline, do the subscript, superscript, things like that. But what I do want to point out is, let's say that I am inserting an equation. I know that this item does not need an equation, so just hang with me here. But if I were to use the equation editor, which is this icon right down here on the bottom of our rich content editor, and I'm just going to say 4 plus 5. Okay, so if I were to either insert an image or use the equation editor, because the equation editor is going to insert this as an image as well, then there is one thing that I want to make sure that I point out, no matter the item type you are creating. If you insert an image or use the equation editor, you want to make sure that you click on the image. So now I've got this little blue box around it. And you want to make sure that you are clicking this icon that looks like speech bubbles. This is for your alt text. Okay, so you want to make sure that your students that are having read aloud are also getting read aloud for those images as well. Even if it's a descriptive image, you could put that as the alt text, like just descriptive image. But wanted to make sure to point out to make sure you are including that alt text. Okay, let me admit this user in real quick. Okay, so my alt text would be 4 plus 5. You do have up to 500 characters for your alt text. Okay. All right. And then I would just go through and put what my correct answers were. So triangle, square. Okay. I want to make sure that I am choosing the correct answer. I can add additional answer choices. My standard is already tagged. I could choose to add a tool or manipulative if I would like. I can upload a formula reference sheet. But since you are creating this item yourself, you might want some of these additional properties. So if I click on additional properties, then I can choose like my cognitive demands level, my Bloom's taxonomy, your DOK level. So those are some things that you might want to include as well, because every question, whether you create it or it is already in the system, is going to have its own unique identifying number. So you'd be able to search for that as well. But you can add these additional filters in there for this question. Okay. All right. So multiple choice is the easiest one. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I started with this. So I am finished with my question. I've got my correct answer chosen. So now I can either choose to preview this as what the student would see. And I do recommend previewing, especially if you have images, just to make sure that the formatting and the placement, everything looks like how you want it to. But once you are finished with it, you are then going to save this to a bank. So you have the option of either saving to your personal bank. Everyone has a personal bank. It's got a little heart on it. That is private to each individual user. Or if as like a grade level or as a department you are creating items, you could create a new bank, and it could be like fifth grade math department. Give a description. You could add users to this bank. So then anyone that you add to this bank would be able to add items or pull from that item bank to create test. So you could do that as well. I'm going to hit cancel and I'm just going to save to my personal bank. So I'm going to save that there. And now I will be able to pull this item into any test that I create. Okay. All right, so that is multiple choice. That is the first item type. And before I move on to checklist, I'm going to see if I have any questions in the chat. Oh, Okay, thank you again. Remember, I said that I'm going to have to be checking the chat in between sections. So I see that you said that you have never used Schoolnet before. So you do not have to create your own account. That is something that is set up in Infinite Campus, and you access it through NC Ed Cloud with your other apps like Canvas, if your school or district has that. Trying to think, that's where like your Infinite Campus icons are, or Nieces, things like that. So it might be beneficial for you to watch our beginners in Schoolnet session for all of the things that we cover for just getting started in Schoolnet, because this is going to definitely be a little bit more in depth. So I do want to put that out there. But yeah, so your data manager is actually the one that gives you access to Schoolnet. Um, and you already have an account. They just have to get it set up for you. Yeah, of course, no problem. Okay, and I did have some other users come in. So I want to make sure I put that slide deck in there. All right, so now I'm going to move on to checklist. Again, I'm not going to be able to cover in our hour every single item type. So I was just pulling out the ones that were the most common, but I do have resources for how to create the other items as well. But we're going to move to checklist, which is like a multi-select. So again, I'm always going to start off here at the Assessments tab, and I'm going to go to Create, and I'm going to go to Checklist. Okay, I have to choose these first three options. So for this one, I'm going to go with Science. And I apologize if you are middle or high school. I taught elementary, so that's why I always stick with the elementary grades for these examples. All right, let's see. I'm just going to drill down into a random standard. Okay. All right. And again, here is where my question is actually going to live. So again, I don't know what standard I picked. So this is going to be one of those we listen and we don't judge situations, because I'm just going to type a question that probably has nothing to do with the standard I chose, because I'm not sure which one I picked. But for example purposes, since it is snowing outside, I might say, what are the forms of precipitation? Okay, and thank you, spelled check. Precipitation, not precipitation. So we have our full rich content editor. Again, just keep in mind that alt text option if you insert an image. Okay, but then we have where we can put our answers. So keep in mind that for checklist, that is where students are able to select multiple correct answers. Okay, so this part is a little bit different. You didn't have this on multiple choice. You do have a scoring model. Okay, so you do have two different options here. So the default is that you assign points to each correct answer. So if the student is answering this question, and let's say there are three correct answers and they only select two of them, well, they would still get 2 points for those two correct answers they selected, but they would not get a point for the one that they did not select. Okay, so that's going to be the default. But you do have the option of all or none. Again, meaning that the students have to select all of the correct answers or they don't get any credit for the question at all. And then you would be able to give a set number of points for that item. So I'm going to go with all or none, and I'm going to say that this question is worth 5 points. We'll just give that example. You can add additional answer choices. Okay, so so let's see, so rain. We'll say that one's correct. I've got to throw some grass. No, that one's correct. Rock and let's say, I don't want to say that. We'll say hail. Okay. All right, so the students, since I have all or nothing, they have to get all three of these correct, okay? Now, you do have the ability to set a maximum acceptance response, and that is actually required for the all or none, meaning that if I check this, I can either say no restrictions, meaning the students can select all of these if they want to, okay? But if I say that they can only choose three, then that will limit them. They could go through and say A, B, C and attempt to check D, but it will not let them. They only have the ability to check three. Now, which three they choose, completely up to them, but it will block them and stop them from selecting more than three. So you do have the option of doing three, or you can go up to the maximum of five, or you could set no restrictions. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at three, but you do have some wiggle room there of what you would like to do. Again, I can choose my tools and manipulatives. I can upload a formula reference sheet. I have my additional properties that I can add in. Okay. And for this one, I am going to preview it. I'm going to do just regular and test nav. Okay, and hopefully you can see that. So here is my question. I believe I set it to three. So once I start going to three, notice that it's blocking me and it says that I'm only permitted a maximum of three choices. So it does have a pop-up for the students and it will stay there until they exit it out and close. So this just lets you see what it looks like. And this is a question that I actually get frequently. In the student preview, you'll see calculate score. Students do not see this when they are live taking the test, okay? So you don't have to worry about that. But this is what it would look like for the student with those checkboxes. Okay, so since that one is complete, I am now going to, I can either by default save it to my personal bank, that's the one with the heart, or if my grade level or my subject area has created a bank together, then I can click save to another bank. So I'm going to save this one to my personal bank. Okay, and that one is now good to go. Okay, we go back over here. I don't have any questions in the chat, so I'm going to go with my next item. I think it's drag and drop. It is. Okay, drag and drop is up next. Check my time. Okay, doing good. All right. So I am going to come over to assessments and I'm going to go to create and I'm going to go to drag and drop. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to do ELA and I'll do third grade. Now, for ELA, I do want to point out, so this would just be creating an item that does not have a passage associated with it. I can add a passage if I wanted to create a passage and add that so that the two are linked. But unless you do that, unless you link a passage to this question, then it is just going to be a question that is not related to a passage. So just something to keep in mind. If you want to add several items that are linked to a passage like what you see in Schoolnet, I would personally recommend creating the passage first and then adding the items. But if for some reason you forgot or you changed your mind after you already built the question, you can go in and add a passage here, okay? So you can add a question prompt, which is different from the actual question. So the question prompt might be something like read the following items, drag the correct choice, almost like directions. It's not required. It is optional, but you do have that option there, okay? So if my question here, again, I have my full rich content editor. I would say, let's see. Oh my goodness, I really don't know what I'm going to put here. Um, Y'all, I'm sorry, I'm staring at this snow and I'm just like, okay, snow's going to be in every single question. Okay, so again, we're not going to worry about what that question is. But if we had an item that was drag and drop, okay, so you're going to have containers. So they're essentially just squares that the students are dragging options to, okay? So actually, I'm going to change this. I'm going to say, because now that I was thinking about that, I'm going to say, there we go. I'm actually going to do that. So my container labels, the label is optional, but I do highly recommend it. So if this was sunny, this was snowy, and this was rainy, okay? Now, I do have the option of having an image here if I would rather have the word and then I could insert a picture of the sun, and the same with snow and rain. But again, just please remember that if you insert an image to do that alt text for any of your students that have that read aloud feature, especially for vision impairment. Okay, so just want to keep pointing that out. Now, my answer choices are going to be over here on the right-hand side. So this would be building a snowman. Okay. I can set here, I want to point this out. Students can drop this in a certain number of containers. So by default, it's going to say they can drop this in one container, but you can change it to 3, meaning that they could drop building a snowman into sunny, snowy, and rainy. So if you are really wanting to make sure that your students are reading the item, or if there are some items that could be dropped into multiple containers, then you're going to want to make sure that you change this because by default, it's going to be into one container. So once they drop that answer choice, it is no longer going to show in the list at the bottom. So just something to keep in mind. Could say swimming. Um, if anybody has a Peppa Pig fan, jumping in muddy puddles. You can see the age of my own kids. And let's say, what do I have going? I'm just gonna give 3 choices. So I'm actually gonna choose to get rid of answer choice D. You can add multiple if you want more than 4. By default, it's gonna have 4 choices, but you can delete one if you would like, or you can add additional ones, okay? And in the answer choices, I didn't specifically say this, but you do have the image option. So if you wanted to just have a picture of someone building a snowman, then you could just have that without the actual text. So you can have images to drop into containers. It does not have to be just text because you do have that rich content editor option here. Okay. All right, so same as before, we do have different scoring models, so we can do the default of assigning points to each answer or all or none. So I'm going to do all or none, and it's going to tell me that I have some errors because I haven't gotten to this yet, and we'll say that each one is worth 2 points. Okay, so this is saying container number 1. Okay, so container number 1 is sunny, so I have to choose the correct answer. And I can limit the students from dropping those answer choices. Okay, so if I were to check this, I could say that they are only able to drop swimming into one container. Okay, so here is question 2 or container 2. So snowy limits, and then here is rainy. I can choose that correct answer and I can limit. Okay. My standards are already chosen. And again, same thing. I have the option of inserting my tools and manipulatives, my formula reference sheet, teacher instructions, and those additional properties. But we do want to preview this. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like for the students. So if I had an image up here, then it would show that, but they are just going to drop. Now, if I had selected the option of allowing them to drop this into more than one container, then I would still see the word swimming up here. But since I said they could only drop it into one container, that is why it has disappeared. Okay, the students can drag it back up, but that is what they're doing. They are dragging and they are dropping. Okay, all right. So I do want to show you. I'm going to actually change this a little bit just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so since I dragged this, I now see the building a snowman still because I said they could drop it into more than one container. So just wanted to show you what that would look like if you chose that. Okay, so now I am going to again either save it to my personal bank, the one with the heart. It's just personalized to me. I'm the only one that can see it, or I can save it to another bank, which would be one if we were creating it as a grade level or a subject area. So I'm going to click Save to Personal Bank. Okay. All right. I'm going to check for questions before we move on. Okay. No questions in the chat. Let's go back here. All right. So I want to just see which ones, because I want to make sure that I get to the converting items, because that one's a little bit more in depth. So I want to make sure I give myself plenty of time for that. Okay, so I am going to skip gap match. And if I have time, I will come back to that and go straight to the task and cluster item. And I can include a gap match item in that one. So it'll kind of cover both. But I want to make sure that I give myself a good 15 minutes for converting. So I am going to go to assessments and create, but this time I'm going to create a task, which is that multi-part question. Okay, so I am going to select, just because it's usually science that is using these, I'm going to choose science again. I'll do fifth grade. All right, so the task name. So this is going to be kind of like the title of the task. It kind of sets the student up for what is going to be coming in these questions. So you could put the standard here. You could put the topic, like if it was changes in matter, weather, whatever it was. So it is required, but what is it actually is completely up to you. So if this task name, I might would say weather, and these are going to be the instructions. So I could say read. So read the following passage and complete the items below. I could put in a passage right here. I don't have one for me to copy over into this question. But this, if I had like a reading passage, I could, or a paragraph, then I could type that into this box here. Now, I do want to talk about the scoring model here with a task item. So the scoring model by default is going to be assigning points to each activity, meaning if they get the first part or the first question wrong in the task, they still have the ability to go to the second question and get some credit for that one. If it is pattern scoring, then the students actually have to get the first one correct in order to even be able to answer the second. So there is this little information activity here. Um, so, and I'm going to hover, but it tells you in the description that for pattern scoring, the students can only receive points for activity B if they get activity A correct. Okay, so just keep in mind when you're choosing the scoring model, both of those things, and click that little I if you're not sure what the difference between those scoring models are. Okay. All right, so this is where I'm actually going to add in my items. Now, the reason why I did not have to choose my standards like usual with my other questions that I've done is because you would assign the standards to each item. So you could have two different questions that cover two different standards, all part of the same parent weather standard, but the questions themselves could have different standards. So I can add an activity here. And I'm going to actually do a gap match because that was one of the items that I wanted to make sure that I got to. So I'm going to choose a gap match. Okay, I could add a passage here, but just know this is only going to be associated with this one singular item. If there's going to be a passage that is associated to all of the items included in the task, then I would put it in that description at the beginning, what we just looked at, because this is only going to add it to that one item. But if it's only associated with that one item and that's all you want it to show for, then that's perfectly fine. Okay. So for gap match, what this essentially is like a fill in the blank. So I could have, what did I say? Weather, I think is what I said this question was. So I'm going to say, again, I'm so sorry that I'm just staring at snow out my window. It's right behind my computer, so snow is on the brain. Um, I don't even know what I want to say here. When it snows, um, the ice crystals blank. Okay, terrible question. But if I wanted the students to fill in a blank here, then I'm going to click Insert New Gap. So again, it's going to be essentially like a fill in the blank. They're going to have the options of dragging and dropping an item in there. I can have multiple. So let's say that there are multiple things that happen. I can put a comma, and then I can insert a new gap, insert a new gap. Like I can have as many here as I want, okay? Let's see what it wants me to do. So I don't actually need three. So I'll say two. There we go. Um, but anything that you want the students to be able to fill in or drag an option to, that's how many of these gaps that you want in the gap match. Okay, so here are where I'm going to put my draggable answer choices. So I could say freeze, melt, there we go. Perfect. I can choose to allow students to drop this into more than one gap. So just keep in mind, if I do change the default of one, then once a student drags the word freeze into a blank, they're still going to see the word freeze if I change this from one. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. I'm going to scroll down. I have my default scoring option. So for gap one, I have to choose the correct answer. So I'll say it's freeze. For my second blank, I have to give, I'm going to actually say sneeze just feel like being a little random today. So gap 2 will say sneeze. This is where I choose my standard. Okay, because remember, we did not have to assign it to the task. We assign it to each individual. Okay, so again, I'm just gonna pick a standard. Okay. I can add my tools and manipulatives, my formula reference, my additional properties. So I'm going to click save. Right? Now I have one item in this task. Okay, but since it is a task, that is a multi-part question. So I'm going to want to add another activity or another question. Okay, I'm just going to go multiple choice just because it was simple. You, of course, you could choose any item you wanted. The only other item you can't do is you can't give another task item. You can't assign a task within a task. But other than that, you can do any other item you would like. What did I choose already? Sunny, rainy, snowy. I don't want 4. I'm just going to have 3. And we'll say it was snowy. Okay, again, I have to select my standard. Okay. And I'm going to click save. So I now have 2 items. So I'm going to return to edit task. So now for my multi-part question, I have 2 activities and I want to see what this is going to look like. So I'm going to preview. Okay, so notice again, this is where I said that you have to have some sort of title, but you could put the standard if you would like. You can have your instructions. If I had a passage or a paragraph that I wanted the students to read based off of the activities, that would be here. And then here is my gap match where the students are dragging and dropping. And then they have their activity 2, which was multiple choice. So this just gives you an idea of what that looks like for students, okay? So everything is right there all together, and they have the 2 different activities. Okay, all right. I am going to check the chat one more time before I show you how to edit an item. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. I forgot to tell you to save it. So after I preview, you want to make sure that you save this to your personal bank or save it to another bank if your grade level or subject area has created a bank together. But make sure you save it. So I'm going to click Save to Personal Bank. Okay. All right, and now I'm going to check the chat. Okay. Still nothing in the chat, so I am now going to have about 12 minutes to show you how you can edit items that already exist in Schoolnet. So this one is a little bit of a different process because this is taking questions that have already been created and you just changing like the type. So there is a lot of multiple choice items in Schoolnet. So let's say I really liked a multiple choice item, but I wanted to change it to a gap match because I want my students practicing those technology type questions. Well, you can do that. So I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. I personally always recommend creating a test. It's not going to be a test that you assign to students. It is strictly going to be for editing items and changing. And the reason that I recommend that is because there is a way for you to save every single question you edit in one click. Instead of having to save them all individually and create them all individually, you can do it all within the framework of an assessment. And then after you save those items, you can just delete the test out. We are just using it for a house, so to say, for these items. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go like I am creating a manual test. The name of my manual test is really going to be editing items. You are going to want to choose your subject that you're going to be changing. So I'm going to go with, I'll go with math, and I'll go middle school for this one. And math, I am not going to worry about anything else because I am not giving this test to my students. I'm just using it to house all of these items. So I am going to go like I'm generating a test like I normally do, but I'm going to use items from Item Bank. Now, in the training site, which is where I am, I do not have all of the banks. I know I have, let's see, I know I have Classroom Bank, which is going to be all multiple choice. So I can drill down and choose my standards. Oh, I gotta choose my math here first. Okay. So I don't know what it is about geometry today, so I'm just gonna go geometry. Okay. Okay, so I am just going to choose three questions. Um, I would actually look at these in depth to think to myself as a math teacher, what other type of item could this be? But since we are limited on time and I'm just showing you the process, I'm just choosing the first three items that I see. So I'm going to add to test. Okay. All right. So let's see. The diagram is a scale drawing. What is the area of the actual playground? Okay. So this one currently being multiple choice, I would want to change this into a open response where the students have to actually type in the correct answer. I don't want them to have multiple choice, okay? That will just say that's one of the things I want to change this to. Now, what I personally recommend is to make a copy of this question because when you change the item type for some questions, it will erase the question and answer choices. So I always recommend making a copy so that you have the original and you can just copy and paste. Make your whole thing a lot easier. Of course, you do not have to do what I recommend. That is completely fine. Just trying to save you a little bit of time. So I am going to hit duplicate right here. This is going to make this a copy. And it's going to automatically put it at the bottom of the list. So I'm going to actually move it up underneath question one. So now question one is the original and question two is my copy. Okay. Now, the reason that I know the difference is because if I look at question one, I see right underneath multiple choice, I see item from item bank. This lets me know that this item is tied to an item bank currently, whereas my copy does not say that. So I know that this is my copy because I can change the type. So I'm going to change this to a open response. Again, you could change this to any item type you wanted. You would have to adjust some things clearly, especially like if you did drag and drop, you would have to change this to have multiple things that a student would drag and drop into a container. So I'm going to change this to an open response. Okay, so this one did not get rid of my question. So that's good, but it just out of habit, I would go ahead and make a copy of it just in case. Okay, so I'm going to keep all of my original question. But for the student response, I'm actually going to give them the equation editor. Now, I know that that might not necessarily be required for this one. I'm going to go back to, um, but like if I want them to be able to put the like feet squared, like I know that I could allow them to use this option in the rich content editor. I'm just going to choose the equation editor because it's math. You don't have to. You could just do the rich text here. But just know if you give them a simple, they literally can just type. There is none of these options here. So if you are going to want them to do anything with like super subscript or any of the other features that are within the rich content editor, you will want to make sure that you are choosing this one. But you don't have to give them spell check, so you can uncheck that box if you don't want them to have that option. But I'm going to do equation editor. This one was for 7th grade, so I'm going to keep it in that 6th to 8th grade option. And let's see, maximum points. I'll say that this is worth 5 points. I can add some exemplars, but since this is just something they would be solving, then I'm not going to worry about that. I can add my tools and manipulatives, my formula reference sheets, teacher instruction, additional properties, just like in all of my others, okay? So I'm going to click Save. And now I'm going to preview this test just to show you that I now am going to have my original, which is number 1. Once the other 20% loads, there we go. So here is my original multiple choice item. And now here is my now changed into a open response item where my students have the equation editor for them to be able to type out their answer. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do hopefully one more as an option. And I'm not even going to delete the original. You don't have to delete the original because I'm going to show you how you can fix that. So I'm going to go to question number 3. And I'm going to hit duplicate. I'm going to drag it underneath my original. I'm going to change the type to, I know this would be an awful gap match, but I'm just going to change it to a gap match. Okay, so notice gap match changed and deleted my question, which is always why I recommend making a copy, because now I could grab this question. Okay, and I do have to insert a gap here, which this really wasn't a great question for a gap match, but that's okay. We're going to insert a gap match here. And our draggable choices are going to be what the multiple choice answers were. I know that's an awful example. I just wanted you to be able to see that you could change these and you can copy from one and paste into the other if needed. I'm just going to copy all 3 of these real quick. There we go. All right, I do have to select the correct answer. There we go. And again, I'm just going to preview this. And hopefully it will load a little bit quicker. My connection's been doing good, so good so far. Okay, just because of time, because I only have 2 minutes left, I'm not going to be able to show you that preview, but that's okay. So I do want to show you the most important step, because if you're going to do the work of changing and editing these into other item types, you want to make sure that you are saving it. So I want to show you the most important step if you are editing items. So I'm going to click Save. Now, again, remember, we are not giving this test to students. This was just for us to edit items. But I do want you to notice in my list of items, okay, notice this gray space down here below number 5. There is nothing there. As soon as I click Finalize Test, I now see Add All Items to Item Bank. So any question that I made a copy of and changed, it will automatically save all of them at one time to my item bank. So that would just be question number 2 and question number 4. All of the other ones were from an item bank, so they will not save because they're not mine to save. But the ones I changed, I can. So I'm going to click Add All Items to Item Bank, Personal Bank, click Save to Bank. And now those 2 questions that I just changed are now in my item bank, and I can delete this test out because I'm not giving it to my students. It was just to be able to edit these items, okay? All right, so now when I went to my item bank, I would be able to see my personal bank, and any of the items I created today are now going to be living in my item bank. So I can see my task item, my drag and drop, there's my checklist, there's my geometry one, my open response, and my gap match. So they all saved at one time when I went through the method of creating a test first. All right. It is 5 o'clock. That was an extremely fast way of showing you how to create and edit these items, but I did want to make sure that I got to those most common ones. But one last thing on slide 64. So of course is the feedback link. So please complete that feedback link for today. But the second one says creating item resource. If you click on that link, it is going to open up, and I have step by step, meaning like a PDF type screenshot and directions of how to create these item types. And I also have tutorial videos on how to create those, how to convert items, and some item type correlation just with the names. So like, for example, on your EOG or EOC, an item type is called a cluster, whereas in Schoolnet, it's called a task. And if you are a math teacher, I also have a North Carolina Desmos resource in here, because if you're going to create your own items or edit items, I wanted you to be able to see how you can embed a Desmos calculator that is the North Carolina specific. So I have those directions in there as well of how to embed the North Carolina specific Desmos if you are a math teacher. I have that resource available for you on that slide as well. But it is officially 5:02, so I am going to stop sharing. And I am going to tell you all to have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me on this snowy Monday in December. I'm going to hang around for any questions that anyone might have, but I hope to see you at future sessions and hope you have a great rest of your day. You are very welcome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this evening. So you should be able to click on the link from the slide deck. Um, you don't have to make a copy. You should be able just to complete it from slide, I think it was 62. You should be able to click and it'll open it up for you. Oh, Elizabeth, I really hope that me showing you like creating a test first, how that can assist. Um, It's fine if you've created them individually, perfectly fine, but you could create your own items within a test and add them all at once. Yes, you can transfer. So I can actually show you real quick. So what am I doing? Share. Okay, I was going to say, wait, what am I doing? Okay, so if I am in my item banks. So let's say I'm in my personal bank here. If I check this box beside this item, then I can go to my item actions and I can click move to bank. So then I would be able to create them in my personal bank and then I could move any of the ones that I wanted to over to the one that you've created altogether with seventh grade. Yeah, of course. Glad I was able to show you something that might be able to save you some time. Yeah, of course. Thank you, Elizabeth. And of course, my email address is right there on slide 2, I think. So if you have any issues that come up while you're doing this process, please feel free to send me an email and I'm happy to hop on a call or help you however I can. Thanks. You too.